What if every path was a good path? What if both choices were good choices? So often we make a choice based out of fear, right? I don't want that, so I'm going to do this. And that still is perpetrating this system of fear, right, wrong, bad, good, fear. And so, especially with birth, because each birth is so sacred and different, what if there wasn't a bad choice? That both, whatever you're thinking about doing with your birth, with your business, what if they were both winning choices? What does that open up in your body? And does that provide more clarity on maybe less pressure and perhaps more clarity on what is actually the next right step for you?
Welcome to the Rewire for Birth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy. I'm a naturopathic doctor and birth guardian, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here. This podcast is all about rewiring the way we think about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum by offering a holistic perspective that empowers you to embrace your journey with confidence and strength. Each week, I'll bring you expert insights, valuable advice, and inspiring stories to help you feel prepared and empowered. We'll dive deep into the transformative experience of bringing new life into the world and explore ways to make your birthing journey truly beautiful.
Please remember that although Cindy is a naturopathic doctor, she is not your naturopathic doctor. This information is made available to you for educational and informational purposes only and should never be used as a substitute for medical advice. Please see rewireforbirth.com/disclaimer for details.
Okay, my loves, this is maybe the 7th time that I am attempting to record this intro. And I don't know what it is, but I think it's because what I really want to say is not quite being captured. This podcast episode is so special and so moving. And I really hope that you just are able to receive it with an open heart and an open mind. Yes, we talk about birth. Yes, we talk about all the things that we normally talk about on this podcast, but we also dive into a very tender area that so many of us are feeling into and experiencing right now in the world because we are in a state of transition. We are in that transformative moment. And I like to equate it to, that ring of fire that we experience as mothers before our babies enter this reality. It's not comfortable, it's intense. The contractions are so stretching. They are intense beyond comprehension. And yet we are capable of moving through it with grace, with love, with peace, and from our authentic maternal authority. So, with that being said, let me introduce the amazing Emily Nashazel or Nahazel. We spoke about how to pronounce her last name, and I hope I didn't butcher it, but she is a business coach and leadership mentor for visionary women and mothers who are here to do things differently. With over a decade of experience blending strategic coaching, somatic intelligence, and purpose-driven entrepreneurship, Emily helps her clients move from lone wolfing their businesses into matriarchal leadership, where they are richly supported, clearly articulated, and deeply connected to their own medicine. As a former beloved client shared, Emily is the perfect blend of strategic planning, embodied guidance, and woo woo magic. Before launching her business, Emily worked in the corporate world for over 5 years, always a top performer, and chosen to instruct professional trainings at a national level. Since then, she's worked with hundreds of women across industries to grow businesses that not only are profitable, but also nourishing to the lives they're built to serve. Such a heartwarming episode. So, if you're driving, that's fine. But if you can, grab a tea or a nice warm beverage, cozy up, and listen to what is about to unfold. All right, we have the beautiful Emily Nahazel on the podcast today. This has been many months in the making, and I have to say, in those months, I have witnessed you just claim your seat, claim your throne, and bloom and blossom and lead other mothers. It has been so lovely to watch and to witness. I'm so blessed, so grateful that we are doing this. Welcome to the podcast, Em.
Thank you, Cindy. I am so excited to be here. I remember when I was pregnant and I put out a post in a group that we were in together saying, has anybody done a free birth? Would you be willing to talk to me about it? And you were like, me. And we had a conversation and it was just so wild. I mean, the conversation was beautiful and supportive. And it was so wild to be nursing my daughter before this call and then to reflect on that moment. It was probably like a year ago at this point, and to know what has transpired between that conversation and this moment. So I'm excited to be here to get into it amongst other things.
Yeah, me too. I remember that conversation, and it is a perfect lead into me asking you to describe what has unfolded in that time. You're welcome to start with your son's birth experience if that feels right for you, but I definitely want to hear how your baby girl came into the world as well.
Yeah, thank you for that invitation. And it does feel important to share the short story of my son's birth. He's 3.5, so there's 3 years between them. And I was like the poster home birth child for that birth. I had started learning about birth even before getting pregnant. I was interested in home birth and natural birth and physiological birth and just learning things about pregnancy, and before I had even thought about conceiving. And I was the poster home birth child, meaning I did all the things. My midwives were like, you're amazing, you're healthy, you're going to rock this. And the birth was really, really long, as many first births are. But for a lot of it, I felt stuck. And I realized in looking back after the fact that there was a way that I had given my power away. I was waiting, wanting, wishing for the midwives in a way to save me, someone to tell me what to do or to make a move. Even though I was super in my body and super empowered and knew the power of women, there was this part of me that wanted to be saved and that gave away the power. And so while I did end up with an unmedicated vaginal birth with him, it was very long. It was very tough. And we did transfer to the hospital at the end. And so the cord was cut right away. The immediate bubble postpartum was ruptured. It was not how I had envisioned it. And I know that it's perfect. I've done a lot of healing around that birth. And I also know that that birth had me take, when we talked about conceiving again, I took a good hard look at the birth, at my beliefs, and what I wanted to do differently. I'm a big believer that we create our own reality, we create our own circumstances, and there's just a part that's fate, right? There's just a part that we can't control, especially when it comes to birth. Our children have their own plans. But I really wanted to feel in my power in the birth, in my body in the birth. And I wanted to feel that wild birth creature take over and for my baby to come out, not because I did it good or did it right, but because I let go. And so that's what really drew me into. I had heard of free birth. I had heard of wild pregnancy and free birth during my first pregnancy. And that's what drew me to be interested in that with my second pregnancy. I wanted that experience. And I also wanted, which you can have at a hospital, you can have with midwives or with attendants. I wanted that moment of catching my baby and bringing them to my chest. And so that was the entry point. And throughout the whole pregnancy, we did end up hiring some midwives at the end. We'll call them if things are not progressing, and also to have some postpartum holding. The pregnancy, for the most part, was wild. I got to talk to a few mothers, yourself included, who didn't push it. This is what I also want to share is you didn't push it on me. You weren't like, do this. You actually, I remember, were asking me really beautiful questions. And another friend, Regina, who I've had on my podcast, who you probably know through the worlds that we're a part of, shared your own experiences and also asking really good questions about why this, what do you want? Those conversations were so supportive in me following the path that I knew was correct for me, which was very hands off, and everyone else's hands off me for this birth and pregnancy.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And so for context, my son's labor was 50 hours. It started from start to finish with 5+ hours of active labor, really hard, being in every position, pushing, being coached, doing things my way, but also being coached. I was working hard. And my daughter's, well, we didn't know we were having a daughter because we didn't have any ultrasounds or genetic testing. I knew I was having a daughter though. Her labor started out very similar. I woke up around 4 a.m. It's the exact same thing that happened with my son. And I just knew. I mean, you're in the field of birth. How do you describe contractions? When someone's like, how do you describe contractions? Because I'm like, I don't even know how to describe the sensation now that I'm out of it.
Yeah, it's a good question because everyone experiences it a little bit differently as well. And so for some people, the early contractions can feel like intense menstrual cramps. For some people, it can just feel like a backache or a belly ache, or it does kind of mimic when we talk about contractions being surges and waves, like changing that language around it. It can feel like this wave moving through your body. And there's often always an intensity to it, but the way that we experience it, each individual mother will experience it differently, just like we experience pain and sensation a little bit differently as well.
Yeah. I think that's the closest term that I can describe is like a ripple going through my body. It didn't feel like anything that I have ever experienced. It didn't feel like period cramps. It didn't feel like a stomach ache or a backache. It felt completely new. That's how I knew this is happening. We're having a baby today. So that's like 4 a.m. Unlike with my son, I was like, I'm just going to go back to sleep. I'm going to not make this a big deal. This was my approach to birth. I'm not going to make it a big deal until it is a big deal, until it's very clear that it's go time. So I went throughout my day. My son eventually woke up my partner and was kind of like, yeah, it's a good day to have a baby. And he was like, really? And I'm like, really?
Your partner or your son said that?
My partner.
Okay.
He's like in sleep and I'm like, wake up, we're having a baby.
Oh, so sweet.
I think Flynn had school. That's my 3-year-old. He had school or some sort of activity. They left the house. And again, I was like, I'm not going to make this a big deal until it's a big deal. So I took a shower, washed my hair, ate a delicious breakfast. I went out to Whole Foods, to Target, to my local smoothie shop, got new candles and flowers for the birth altar, bought the next book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is a very weird thing to read when you are in labor, but maybe not because it's a fantasy, right? So I just went throughout my day, spent some time outside. There was definitely some moments and things didn't really shift. The waves were about 10 minutes apart. I was lightly tracking them. They were about 10 minutes apart, and that's just how it stayed. And I noticed there were a few moments when my thoughts would go, well, shouldn't things be progressing? Shouldn't things be going quicker? This is looking a lot like Flynn's birth. And what I really desired was a faster, more empowering experience at home. And I just caught those thoughts. And I was like, I am on nobody's timeline. And who's to say, just because the time between the contractions isn't getting closer together, that doesn't mean anything. I got a ping to read a mentor's birth story, and that was really beautiful because her experience was all day labor and then fast and furious. When the sun came down, her daughter came quickly. And reading that story, almost like speaking with you, speaking with Regina, speaking with other mothers, hearing other birth stories about, it just gave me permission to really relax. Nothing was wrong, and that I would know if something else needed to happen. That was the whole day from like 4 a.m. until 4:30. Eventually, Colin and Flynn, that's my partner and son, come home. We're all hanging out in the backyard. We live in a townhome. So there's people we have neighbors right next to us. Our backyards are connected. And there was a moment at like 4:30 where things started to shift, where I felt too exposed. I was moving through the waves, kind of having to pause my book or playing with my son or eating popcorn or whatever I was doing. I'd have to pause and move through the sensation. And then there was a very visceral shift when it was like, I don't want to be out here anymore. This is too exposed. So I went inside, went up to my bedroom, was laboring alone a little bit, and very quickly, I don't want Colin to be watching our son. I need him in here with me. Even just telling the story, it's so awesome that I knew that. We also didn't have a plan for what we were going to do with our 3-year-old. My parents live 10 or 15 minutes from us. So it was like, if we need to call them and he needs to leave, great. Maybe the baby will come at night and he'll be asleep. I don't know how I'm going to feel. But in that moment, I was like, I need Colin with me. And I think we should call my parents to come pick up Flynn. When I went inside was also the time that I finally texted. I had the birth circle and my oldest, closest group of friends. I think I had let my parents know that we were in labor, but pretty much everyone else, I was just like, nope, we're not making it a big deal until it's a big deal. And that's when I texted around 4:35 p.m. Hey, we are in labor. Please light a candle for me. Please pray for me. Then things intensified really, really quickly. Like going from being outside, reading a book, playing with my son, to roaring on all fours on the bed in a matter of minutes. Even at this time, one of my closest, oldest friends called me and she's like, oh my gosh, how are you? I had a conversation with her on the phone. We did also call the midwives just to give them a heads up. We're in labor. We'll call you if we need you. And they also were like, you sound totally cool. Call us when things progress. This is like 5:30. But I could tell things were picking up. My son comes in, he climbs on top of me during a wave, and I'm just like, get him out, which broke my heart, right? Because again, there's a part of me that sees these stories about the older kids being able to be there for the birth, but it was just a hard no. I couldn't tend to him. I was just so fully in. And actually, with this birth, which was interesting, I really did not want anyone touching me. From the very beginning, the moment we opened the conception portal, which was several months before we actually conceived, this is another reason why we pursued a free birth. I always just felt that this birth was me and the baby. I just saw me. I didn't even see Colin. I didn't even see my partner as part of this, although I knew he was there. And that was very much my experience. There was a moment, maybe like Flynn touched me or Colin touched me, and I was like, no. The hands on the hips, what they call hip squeezes. Yeah. Let's try that. We did that in our first labor. No, don't touch me.
I love this so much.
So it was a really interesting experience. And I think a lot of the work around just really being in touch with myself and being unapologetic for that was so important, because eventually my dad came to pick up my son, and it was heartbreaking, but I also knew it was so important because then Colin could come tend to me. So this is like 6:30 at night. Colin starts blowing up the birth tub. I'm in our bathroom, which is small. There's a bathtub, there's a toilet, and there's about the space on the ground for a grown adult to be on all fours, which is where I ended up giving birth. Spoiler alert. I'm moving through, he's fussing with the birth tub, and I knew that I was never going to get in that birth tub with this birth. I spent a lot of time in the birth tub with Flynn, knew I was never going to get into it. And finally, I was like, just get in here. I get into the shower because that was also really supportive with my first labor, and it felt super unsafe. I remember that feeling so soothing with Flynn and with my first labor and birth. But I got in there and I was almost like, I can't find the ground. It felt like my feet were not beneath me, that I was going to fall or I was going to slip. And this was the point where things super picked up. And I think I said something to Colin, like, get me out. I don't know if I can do this. By the way, I also want to say that I had this free birth plan. I've done all this somatic work, embodiment work, belief system work, education around what to do if something happens. And the moment things intensified, I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? What the actual was I thinking to do this alone? And I almost thought about FaceTiming a friend, someone who I knew could really hold space for me, or calling a friend to come in. And I felt those people, my prayer circle, my sisters supporting me. I want to share that because there's also this, what did I sign myself up for? And I don't know if that's like an old character or an old part or just the reality of things intensified super quickly and it felt like I could not find the ground beneath me. And in my mind, I still thought we had a long way to go. That's where I think that this is really important, and probably folks who've been in labor can understand this, is if you get outside of the current moment of birth, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the sensation is super, super intense. Like if you were running a race, I used to be a runner, right? Okay, I'm pacing myself and I'm running, and I know I have 5 miles left in this race or 1 mile left of this race. That's not how birth works, at least from my experience.
It is not like that, no.
And so I think that fear that came up of, oh my God, what was I thinking, was because we have X number of hours more to go, or there's that I'm not at the level 10 yet, or what sometimes these metrics, right, that even the medical system and the non-medical system, the more holistic system, will give you of this is where you are, and that measures your progress. That mindset, I think, put me in a position of more pain or suffering. So anyways, I'm in the shower for like 2 or 3 waves of sensation, and then I get out and Colin puts a towel on me and I drop to the floor and I'm on all fours. I'm throwing up at this point too, puking in between contractions. And he's holding my hand, so he's there with me, kneeling, we're facing each other. And even in my brain, I'm like, this is not like the birth position, kind of like a puppy dog pose, if folks are familiar with that in yoga. But it felt right. I had a come to self moment of, okay, you can do this, you can do this. And then I realized that the contractions had changed. There are the contractions that feel like they're ripping you open or stretching you open, because they literally are. Those, to me, are the more intense ones. They feel vulnerable, right? You're just opening, opening, opening. But as I got onto all fours, throwing up, pooping a little bit, I was like, oh, my body's pushing. This is a different contraction. This is now a bearing down. I wasn't like, okay, contraction is coming, let me push. This was also something that I really, really wanted out of this birth. I wanted to feel my body doing it, like, and I did. And that shifted everything, because I was like, holy shit, we're having this baby now. I don't have hours more to go. This baby is coming now, which you could be in that pushing phase for a while, that gave me the renewed strength. And also it was a different feeling, being able to really feel grounded and safe on the floor. That was a huge shift. So again, just for a time check, 6:30 is when my son gets picked up. And well, I didn't know what time it was. I'll keep telling the story. And then I'll tell you what time it was when she arrived. Then I also have a moment on all fours. So I have this renewed energy, like this is happening. But then I also have this moment where I feel something coming and I'm like, oh, what if I just have to poop? Because that also happened with Flynn. I thought very early on in his active labor, which was 45 hours into labor, but also 5 hours from when he actually was born. I was like, the baby's coming, the baby's coming. And I just pooped in Colin's hands. This was my first birth. Talk about commitment, intimacy. So I was like, oh my God, what if I just have to poop again? And I'm thinking that we're almost there, but it's just poop. But then it was an undeniable sensation and something that I didn't feel with Flynn. I think maybe I was a little bit disconnected from the position I was in. I was just so tired of pushing, but I felt her head go underneath my pubic bone and then sit on my perineum. And I felt her head go out and then go back in a little bit and go out and go back in a little bit. And that was the most insane. Even as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that again. Like the most insane experience was just to feel that and to say to Colin, the baby's coming. He's facing me. He has no idea what's happening. He has no idea. I asked him later on, did you see my eyes at any one point during this labor? And he was like, no, you never once made eye contact with me, which is wild because he was there throughout a lot of it. I'm holding his hands, but I'm closed eyes or looking at the ground or looking fully in. And somehow I communicate to him that this baby is coming now. I still don't even know totally what happened. I must have come up, taken my hands off the ground or pushed up so that he could reach under and this baby comes out in one.
Oh my gosh. You really knew.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he caught her and handed her to me, and this baby has a full head of dark hair. I have dark hair now, but I had no hair and blonde hair as a baby. Colin had red hair, full head of dark hair, screaming her face off. I think he's unwound the cord and handed her to me. And that's like the one picture I have from the birth itself. And I was like, get the time, get a picture. Because I'm an astrology nerd, so I have to know my child's exact birth time so we can know their rising sign and their moon sign and all of that. It's really cool to even be sharing this experience and remembering that insane sensation of something that's been on the inside and this whole journey, and then all of the sudden they're here. They're here. The time was 7:14, by the way. So 45 minutes after my son had been picked up.
Oh my gosh.
45 minutes after, and at some point, I think after my son had been picked up, we did call the midwives. Even at 6:45, we have an outgoing call to them, and they're like, you seem okay. 5 minutes later, I tell him, no, they should probably come because they were also like an hour away. It's like, they should probably come. So we call them like, the baby's here. They're like, okay.
What?
I guess everything's okay.
Yes.
And like I said, we hadn't had any genetic testing or ultrasounds. And so, of course, I looked down. Do I have another son or do I have my daughter? Is this my daughter? Sometimes when babies come out, especially little girls, their genitalia is a little swollen. So both of us, for a second, thought we had another boy. But then after another minute, it was like, no, no, no. This is our little girl. She's here. And screaming, screaming, screaming. So we're like, yeah, she's here. She's very much on this planet. I think we were in the bathroom for a couple minutes, eventually walked over. So the bathroom's like attached to our bedroom, just walked over to the bed, cord still attached, baby still screaming. And like with so many other pieces of this birth, I was like, oh, I need to birth the placenta right now. And I literally just got up on my knees and it came out,
Oh,
which
wow.
which was cool. I mean, I probably pushed it out, but at that point there was no effort. It was definitely not a big thing. Just, okay, here comes the placenta. And that's how our daughter came into this world.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that so candidly with such beautiful detail. And as you're telling the story, you've teleported all the listeners, including myself, into that space. What a beautiful depiction of, first of all, not making it a big deal until it is. I love that phrase, because what can happen sometimes when we make it a big deal before it is, a lot of adrenaline gets pumped into our system, especially if we're calling people, getting all excited. And that can actually slow the progression, and it can lead to disappointment or second guessing. And I also want to focus in and emphasize that you don't know what you're going to like and not like. So
Yeah.
in your first labor, touch sounded like it was really nourishing and supportive for you. The hip squeezes, water sounded like it played a good role for you and was supportive and something you went to and thought was really soothing. And this time around, you were like, no, this is not where I need to be.
Yeah.
And Colin was pumping up the birthing pool, and you're like, I'm probably not going to go in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I also want to inquire a little bit. It's the first time we're bringing it up on the podcast, surprisingly, and maybe not surprisingly that it's with you, but the
Mhm.
birth altar. Can you tell us more
Mm,
about the birth altar and how you set that up and some of the
yeah.
significance of it and symbolism?
Yeah. So I will say, probably because I'm a toddler mom, so I like to make things, I'm used to explaining things too, very simply. Is an altar to me is a physical representation of something that might not be physical yet,
Mm.
or might not be physical. Like we have an ancestors altar at our home where we have pictures of our loved ones who have passed. We have little things that remind us of them. And so the birth altar for me was something that I had started. I got these beautiful birth candles. And so those were set up many days in advance. And then I just added little pieces of things that reminded me of the experience that I wanted to have, but also of the importance of surrender. So, candles, which, by the way, they were the beautiful candles that I did not light. The candles that I went out to get and the fresh flowers that I went out to get that day were just simple beeswax candles. I also think on the altar we had pictures of each of us as children. So, like little pictures of each of us. I had some little trinket that Colin gave me, I think something else that a sister gave me. So it just felt like this physical representation. And I'll give even more detail. The beautiful birth candle was of a mother with the newborn baby on her chest with the umbilical cord still attached. The mom had just given birth. And that for me was always the image, the desire with this birth of, I want to bring the baby to my chest. I want to have that, because I didn't have that exact moment with my son. Yeah, just little things that felt like it would be fortifying in the moment. And to make the space beautiful, we have this mirror, and that's where I had the birth altar set up. So I did spend some time just making that area beautiful, clear from things that would feel cluttery or distracting. And also ended up giving birth on the bathroom floor with an old ratty towel over my shoulders. So it's all the things. We have this beautiful altar, and it's this representation of our strength, our desires, our non-physical guides or supports. And we also have birth, which is really raw sometimes and primal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And the how you described it, the image of the candle is the position that you were in. It's the position
Yeah.
that felt comfortable for you and that felt right for you, and that you got up somehow for Colin to catch your baby girl and put her on your chest. And it's wild to me when these synchronicities happen, when a mother is very focused in and intentional about a certain image or a certain feeling that she wants to experience in the birth. That's the co-creation part. There's so many things that we cannot control, so many variables that are out of our hands. And yet I hear this over and over again. I'm doing my part, my baby's doing their part, and then whatever greater intelligence is also playing a role here, right? So beautiful to hear. The other thing that I want to emphasize for the listeners from your story that you told so well is that you might have an idea about how you want to interact with family members, your older children, and it's okay to really surrender to how you're feeling in the moment, because you might have this idea about like, I want my older child there to witness birth, to normalize birth so that they have an experience of it for whenever the time comes for them. And it's totally okay to just feel like, you know what? I really need to focus inward and tune in. And this beautiful human who I love and is my firstborn might be a bit of a distraction in the moment. And that's how I
Yeah.
felt. I wanted someone to take care of my toddler because I felt like it would take me out of that labor land zone, that altered state of consciousness that we get into.
Right. And I'm glad you emphasized that because, yeah, I think that there's a way that we can put one choice or alternative over the other of, oh, it's better if the child can be there. And what's best, something that I say, this is more in the business context because that's my world, but what's good for me is good for my baby, is good for the world. What's good for me is good for my business, is good for the world. And I think
Mm.
that's true here too, right? When I make the choice, this is what I need. My son was able to go be loved up on by both of his grandparents, have a special dinner, have a sleepover. I think they probably ate ice cream or something. And then he got to wake up and come meet his baby sister in the morning when things were cleaned up and when he could have a little bit more of at least one of his parents' attention. Because that's true as a mother, it is. And if I can also bring this into business, because something that I've been really working on, especially with the second child, is bringing her along for so much of the ride, bringing her to business conferences, bringing her to somatic immersions, bringing her on my own retreats that I'm hosting and on calls. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. That doesn't mean we're failing at being mother business owners. Doesn't mean we're failing at birth. It just means I get to like make a choice. And as the mother, I know what's best for me, and I also do know what's best for my children. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive, they dance together.
Hey mama, are you ready to transform your birthing experience? We're offering a free guided meditation to help you start rewiring your brain for an empowered birth. Imagine feeling calm and in control, embracing your inner strength, and making your birthing journey smoother and more joyful. Doesn't that sound amazing? It does, right? And it's possible for you. To get started, visit rewireforbirth.com/meditate and grab your free meditation now. Let's make your journey beautiful together.
Yeah, that's so beautifully put. We get to pivot and we get to tune into our inner compass in real time and see what
Yeah.
works for us and for our family in that moment. So I really love how you were able to depict that. I also want to emphasize that moment where you were like, what have I done? What the actual fuck have I put myself into, right? It is often the moment as we're close to transition when we're like, I can't do this. I chose this. This was my decision. And so that's often when we're really close to baby making their appearance in the world. But I love how you brought it back to what's my train of thought here? Is all this fear bubbling up because I'm kind of predicting what's going to happen. I am putting a timeline on where I should be. And can I just bring myself back? So I love that you had that awareness to just observe your thoughts in the moment and not let the
Well,
fear.
well, I don't think I had that awareness in the moment. I had that awareness after the fact. What helped me in the moment actually was vocalizing that, owning that, because I think there's a way, and maybe folks, someone listening can relate to this. I'm a very capable woman. I'm capable in my smarts. I'm capable in my softness and my intuition. I'm a very capable person. Birth requires you to surrender. It does. It requires you to crack off the I'm capable, I've got this. And for me, that was how I approached it differently, was instead of resisting that, oh, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, I really met it and let myself vocalize it, which I think let me move through it versus being in resistance of it. And you're so right. I knew that. I've been through birth. I've also studied birth. We can know that, oh, yeah, the moment where you feel like you can't do it, you're actually so, so close to your baby. And I had no idea, almost couldn't see that in the moment because I was just in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is on purpose, right? No matter how prepared we feel or think that we are, birth is meant to be this initiation that stretches us beyond our limits so that we enter into this new phase of ourselves, this new version of ourselves. And the old version is dying in that moment. So for your son, it was this initial entrance, this rite of passage into motherhood. And for your daughter, it is this new way of mothering, this new configuration of your family unit that you're entering into. And also, you haven't had a daughter before. So it sounds like it was a completely different pregnancy, a completely different birth experience, and you moved through it in a completely different way. I'm so glad that you came on to share your story because there are so many nuggets of wisdom in there for everyone listening. And you really did it. You did the wild pregnancy thing. You did the hands off thing. And I'm curious about what that was like because that's a little edgy, you know?
Super edgy.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for this space. It's so powerful. I love listening to birth stories. It's so powerful. And it's also really powerful to share and to know that this will be in the ears and hearts of other women. There was a course that I was leading earlier this year, and something that I shared there, we were talking about confidence and self-trust. And the fact is, self-trust and confidence isn't built when you know the path. It's like, oh, I know this is the path, and I'm going to walk this path. Here's the steps that I need to take. This is what someone tells me to do. I follow that. It sounds obvious because I'm exaggerating here, but that's not where confidence and self-trust is built. Confidence and self-trust is built when you make a decision and you take action towards that decision when you don't know the results, when you're stepping into the unknown, when you're going against the status quo, or maybe what other people are telling you, what your mind or intelligence is telling you, and you come out the other side and you're like, I can bet on myself. I have a better inner compass than anyone else can give me. And so, to your point around birth being this initiation, yes, 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 there were those moments of self-doubt or fear or what the F am I doing? That actually is a sign we're on the right path. We're on the path that has the most potential to be liberatory, that allows us to really root into our power, not just because somebody said, can you make this doll? Can you sew me a doll that looks exactly like this? No, because we decided to do something our own way. And so I also felt that the wild pregnancy was a really, really important practice. If you're going to do a free birth, it's not just the birth, it's the whole pregnancy process from the moment that you say, I'm not going to get this genetic test. I haven't seen a picture of my baby. My baby could come out of the womb with no hands or with Down syndrome or with anything that we are testing for. And For me, it was a really powerful practice in just getting super quiet and listening to what was true. There are some people who come into free birth because they had a bad birth experience with a practitioner. And so there's almost this rejection of the medical system or even a rejection of the midwifery system because that was not safe or didn't treat them fairly. They didn't felt right. It's like a rejection. That was not my experience. And so I always had this mindset of if I feel the need to get a blood test, to get an ultrasound, I trust that I will get that ping if I need to know that information. And I am not against doing that. I just never felt the need along the way. And I will say the moments where my faith was tested the most, my faith in myself, my faith in my body, my faith in my baby, my faith in source and spirit, was the window, the first trimester, right? Before you see anything different, before you start to feel any flutters or anything, that's an intense time, whether or not you were choosing a wild pregnancy, free birth or not, right? The most profound thing, the biggest thing is shifting within you. Nobody on the outside can see. We're not telling people on the outside. And that's also a time where typically there's like a lot. Oh, you do a pregnancy test. Oh, you do another pregnancy test. Oh, you do a blood test. Oh, you do a first ultrasound, all of these things. And I was just like, okay, I'm drinking meat stock and nettle tea. So that was an intense period. And then of the leading up to the birth itself, right?
Mm.
So that more of the passage from third trimester into birth land, into labor land, we didn't have anything come up. There was nothing that came up in the pregnancy as a red flag or somebody really pushing up against us of like, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. But those two portals were definitely the moments where I was like, okay, is this really what you want? Is this really what's best? And what I want to just reemphasize is facing that question doesn't mean you don't believe in yourself. Facing that question is what allows you to root deeper into your own belief and truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true. So well said. And it reminds me of the conversation we had because we were just talking about it. And I said, if you need to transfer to the hospital again, fine, no big deal. And I think there is for a lot of mothers who are leaning, like desire, let's say, an unmedicated or a quote unquote natural birth or a free birth, there is that rejection that you're talking about of the conventional medical system. And it can cause some tension. It can cause a lot of disappointment. It can cause its own form of trauma. But if you surrender and let go and say, if I need to, I need to. I'm going to listen to my internal compass. I'm going to assess the circumstances as a mother who knows what's best for me, for my baby, for my family, and let go of all of those expectations. It can make a profound difference in the experience.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll add, because this was later in the pregnancy decision, I mentioned we did hire midwives at like 35 or 36 weeks pregnant.
That is
And
late.
this was the result of an inquiry and me really being able to get clear on what I wanted without it being labels. I had this desire for this birth that to me, when we started out the pregnancy, it was like, this sounds like a free birth, right? But later in the pregnancy, from some reflections, I was like, I don't necessarily need to be totally alone in this. That doesn't mean I can't have any support, even though I do want to be alone and in my power in most of the experience. And so we ended up finding a pair of midwives who respected those choices. And I think it was a big moment for me to be like, yes, we're going to hire them, because it just showed I wasn't holding on to, oh, this has to be a free birth flag of like, I do want to hire these women. They agreed to my conditions. I also agreed to their conditions. They did want me to get one blood test at whatever weeks, which I did. And we get to have support. It doesn't have to be like I'm unsupported. I can be free and also be supported. Like I said, if the labor were to last 50 hours, or if I were to feel like to have someone to call, that felt really supportive for me. And I think it also is what allowed me to then surrender more deeply into the experience. So I'm sharing that for anyone who might feel still stuck on labels, because I did have that internal wrestling of, we've had a wild pregnancy up till 35 weeks. Am I really going to hire someone now? And then I was just like, yeah, I am. And it's going to be great. And we loved them. We formed a great relationship with them. They provided some awesome postpartum care, and we got the birth of our dreams.
Yes, you did. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
lovely. And I think there is Kimberly Ann Johnson, who you might know. She's the author of The Fourth Trimester and other amazing books. But she was like, what is this infatuation that we have with doing everything on your own? It's like the less support you have, the more of a goddess you are. And she just dismantled that for us. And it made so much sense because there is this almost like worship that we are creating. And it doesn't need to be like that. So tune into that mama intuition. Really ask yourself, what kind of support do you want? Maybe it is just calling your mom after the birth, or calling a sister or an aunt or just your partner. Fine. But maybe you desire to have that. It's not like a safety net. It's that feeling of community with women who have seen this, who understand it from both a scientific level and have also experienced it themselves, and can really come to your side and nurture you and give you what you need, especially in that precious postpartum period.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about that.
We could talk for another hour about, I call it the psyop of the hyper independent woman, the lone wolf. I need to do it all alone. Maybe we will have another conversation. Maybe we'll have it for my podcast. But yeah, just thinking back to traditionally, yes, some women did free birth or they birthed alone. And this connects so much to the work that I do in the world around women and their leadership and their medicine. Is you would not survive in the wild. You'd be very unlikely to survive in the wild if you just had a baby by yourself. We need the village. I'm thinking of being in a birth tent and having the person standing guard, watching the birth tent, or the person watching the fire, making sure that there was hot water for tea or a fire to cook food on, to nourish the mother who is nourishing the mother. And so I think we are just stepping into this radical new age where we get to redefine support, redefine the village. It doesn't have to be hospital birth or home birth or free birth or restricted birth. And in the system birth, we just get to do it the way that feels true for us. And most women do thrive with a web of support.
Yes. Amen. I'm so glad that our conversation led exactly here. And I think it's a perfect way for you to describe the way that you're approaching not just motherhood, but also your leadership and your business, and how you're guiding others on that journey, because there are so many connections. That web that you're talking about, I also see it across all these different facets of who you are.
Thank you. Yeah. Just to continue what I just said is, I think most women, and I work mostly with women, most women don't really want to do life, business, family alone. That sounds silly, like you're doing family with other people. We don't want to do things alone, but we've been given this model of leadership, of success, that's kind of like a one size fits all. And it was designed for a man. Maybe it works for a young woman, a maiden. I can carry it. I've got myself. I am independent. I am capable. It works until we have children and we realize we have to drop some balls. We literally can't do it all alone, especially if, I think this is true for you, It's likely true for a lot of folks listening in. If you're someone who has really big dreams, both for your family and for your work in the world, if you're someone who doesn't want to choose, I want to be a super devoted present mom. We want to partially homeschool our kids. We want to have a homestead. There's this dream. And then there's also this dream of 7-figure coaching business, retreats filled with women, mother minds in every city across the world, women sitting in circle, masterminding together, holding each other's babies. This dream is also really big. And the only way that I get to hold both of those and be present in both of those and enjoy both of those is when I learn to weave this web of support around me. And that looks like support, practical support in your home, practical support in your business and your leadership. And it also looks like unlearning these patterns that have been ingrained in so many of us that keep us holding on so tightly to everything. I've got this. I can do it myself. I've got myself. And instead, open up to be in communication, to be in collaboration, to be held, to be supported. And that sounds nice. And this is where my work especially comes in, where we get into the beliefs that live in your body and how your body responds or is asking or blocking support. It sounds good on paper. Yes, I want to be supported, but what that actually looks like, right? It sounds like being in a relationship. Yes, I want to be in a relationship. Relationships get sticky.
They sure do.
We have to be able to be in conflict. We have to be able to make big asks. We have to be able to put others out and draw boundaries. And so these are the skills. This is one side of the skills of matriarchal leadership that I don't claim to be the first person doing this. It's a remembering of how we used to lead as women in circle, in community. And it is also an emergence of a new way that is ripe for our modern times because we're not going back to the village. Most of us are not just going to be in, it's a fairy tale. That's not the reality for most of us. We live these global lives. We have multiple communities. We have online businesses. We have in-person businesses. We have blended families. We have to learn to lead in a new way that works for us and that meets us in the world that we live in. So that is the work that I do with women, is releasing this lone wolf. I've got to have it all figured out myself. I have to carry it all myself. And that it has to look a certain way to be like, no, your business, your company, your leadership, your family, it gets to meet you as you, all the parts of you, the witchy you, the wild you, the nerdy, ambitious you, the mother you, the queen you, all of it.
Yeah. I love the way that you put that. And as you're speaking, I'm just seeing the village, the ideal that I have in my mind of this village where I can just open the doors and my kids run outside and all these relatives and close friends and family are also parenting our children together, and we have dinner together and a bonfire every night. That's just not how I live, unfortunately. And so we do have to restructure what it means to have this support system and this community in our lives today.
Yeah. And we get to hold that vision, but not as a fantasy fairy tale that we're never going to get to because we live in the Washington, D.C. suburbs, or because our kids want to go to public school, or because our family is spread throughout the world, or because we can hold that beautiful village imagery and bring in things of the potluck with friends, of the friends who are family, like times where the in-laws or the parents get to fly in and be with the kids or not, or we get to weave it in, but in a way that also really meets us where we are, instead of it always being something that's out there in the future that's not really attainable or practical for our lives right now. And that's something too that I do a lot of work with, is how do we get you here right now? The things that you want, the success that you want. I don't work with people in the birth world, like on their actual births, although it tends to come in because I work with a lot of mothers, but how do we bring forward the medicine that you have in a way that is true to you and also true and supportive of the season of life that you're in.
Yeah. It's just resonating in my body as you're saying that.
Mhm.
It just feels true. And that's something also that I want people who are listening to hear. How is your body responding to what you're hearing, to different ideas? Then let that really guide you to be like your North Star. And I know this is a huge focus for you as well, because you do all of the somatic immersion work. And that is such a big part of being able to come into that altered state of consciousness that we enter in birth and surrender and be able to move through it and let our babies move through us, and holding that trust and that faith in who we are and in our bodies and in our babies. I do want to ask, because I know it's going to lead into something that me and you both want to talk about. I felt in my birth experiences, because of how they unfolded, that there was this like activation in me as a human being, as a mother. And I was like, oh, wow, I am so powerful. You get confronted with what you are capable of as a mother, as a human being on this planet, and you get activated and you get to pierce behind the veil of some illusions that are around us. You get to see a little bit clearer of this 3D reality that we inhabit. You also get intensely connected with the generations that are to come and to your ancestors. I think for me, it started at conception. I was like, oh, I feel this connection in both ways all of a sudden. And I think collectively as mothers, this activation that's taking place, this reclamation and remembrance of our ability to bring new life into this world, is also activating this deep yearning and longing and desire to co-create a more beautiful world for the next generation to come. And this is
Yes.
why I'm so blessed and grateful that you agreed to come on to this podcast, because we're going to have this talk that is months and months in the making. When I look into your eyes as a mother, something happens. I understand, like, your kids are also my kids,
Yes.
and my kids are also your kids. And we're here to actually support each other and to collaborate and to bring beauty into this world, this matriarchal way of leadership that you're discussing. I think this is the spark
Yes.
that is going to just catch fire and move through the consciousness of all mothers. And it's starting in our wombs.
Mhm.
It's starting with how we welcome our babies into the world. It's starting with how we lead energetically, how we lead our families. And then it has ripple effects into our communities and at large. And so this topic of true peace, we've had, I think, an illusion of peace, right? Which
Yeah.
is like, how much can I protect myself? Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
True
Like,
peace is emerging now.
yeah. Thank you for bringing this. My podcast is called Birthing the New because I believe as business owners and mothers, all of us here, but especially as business owners and mothers, as leaders, as matriarchal leaders, we are building the new world through our wombs, through our work, through our words. It can be devastating to look at the news and look at the world stage. It is devastating. And I think it's important that we do look out. We're not just navel gazing on our own selves, but also it starts here. I am such a big bully. I think we're on the same page of like, okay, I personally can't change this situation out here, whether it's something in your family, something in your community, something in your place of origin. I might not be able to change that in a way, but also I can make a ripple effect from where I am right now. And to your point of this like illusion of peace. We have this thought of peace, but what is peace actually? As mothers, I saw this mother bear when you said that, of like, what is the peace that we're leaving behind is this mother. So like holding back the world, like mom's creating this bubble. So the babies are safe, the children have peace, but mom is like, I got to hold out this darkness. Of course, that's part of what we do as mothers, especially when our children are really young. But that somatically, that's exhausting for the mother. And instead, there's this new way where instead of protecting by shielding or by holding back, we get to emanate a new way by being in conversation, by showing our children that peace doesn't mean peace all the time. Actually, peace is like we get to tussle a little bit, we get to have disagreements, but that doesn't mean we have to go to war over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason why we see so much violence on the world stage is because we actually don't know how to be in conflict and to resolve conflict on an interpersonal level. Cancel culture. So that's my thought.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thought. And I think we feel it. I felt it. The thing that I'll say also with this birth is after the birth, I was like, oh, I have no birth trauma. And again, this is not to say when we have birth trauma that that's bad, or if we have to process a birth that's bad. There was this huge opening in me because after my son's birth, it felt very like I ran an intense race and I was exhausted and I needed to heal. It was also amazing because I had this beautiful baby in front of me, but all of this stuff got cleared out of me, which I also think was a couple generations of not having empowered births.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we do? What is the world that we can create from that place?
Yeah. From that place of love and safety and trust. There's something about just looking at another woman in the eyes, at another mother in the eyes. There is something that gets activated in us. Some of the armor gets dissolved a little bit, right? And just for context for the listeners, you're a Jewish mama, I'm a Palestinian mama, and there is so much love between us. And we're holding a lot. We're raising little humans with a lot of heaviness in the background. And so,
and with generations of that, maybe there's a bigger conversation to have about this, but that was something these last 2 years really brought forward of me, the epigenetics of what's been coded in as a Jewish person. I'm sure for you as a Palestinian person, and then as a mother, what then, yeah, we're carrying so much.
And we're also being called to shift those codes in our DNA so that our children are able to experience something different. Because one of the biggest messages on this podcast is that something else is possible. I know it. You know it. We have felt that something else is possible than what we typically see in the media, which is as soon as the water breaks, you're rushed off to the hospital. It's an emergency. There's excruciating amounts of pain and just trauma, drama. We know something else is possible. That's not only in the birth experience, but in what we can birth and create in the world at large. We could talk for hours, but I think this is a great way for us to wrap up because, you know, when a new life is entering this reality, there is this potential imprint for love and safety and trust, which are all signatures of oxytocin. It's what's meant to happen. It's meant to be this big welcome party for this new life here. Welcome to planet Earth. We're so glad you're here. But what can happen sometimes is that it's an imprint of mistrust, of survival mode, of uncertainty, of fear. And unfortunately, that's happening close to 45% of the time, if not more. I know it's not permanent. I just always like to say that we can do the repair. There are things that we can do, but we can, instead of just repairing all the time, we can prepare in a different way. We can have a different approach to this experience. And I think we are seeing, unfortunately, the fruits of all of that trauma in the world that we see.
Totally.
And when we come together as mothers and we follow that internal compass that you did so well in your birth experience that you shared with us, we get to see the fruits of hopefully a generation that is imprinted with love and safety and trust and then moves through the world in that way. And I think we'd be looking at a very different world if that were the case. And if this movement catches fire in a way and spreads, and this is how we're birthing the new.
Yes.
So with that being said, that's kind of my way of asking you, what would you like to imprint onto the ears of the listeners? It's a lot of new moms. It's a lot of families preparing for birth. It's also a lot of those creative mothers who want to birth something beautiful into the world, a mission-led business, beautiful art, whatever that may be for them. What would you like to imprint onto their ears?
What if every path was a good path? What if both choices were good choices? So often we make a choice based out of fear, right? I don't want that, so I'm going to do this. And that still is perpetrating this system of fear, right, wrong, bad, good, fear. And so, especially with birth, because each birth is so sacred and different, what if there wasn't a bad choice? That both, whatever you're thinking about doing with your birth, with your business, what if they were both winning choices? What does that open up in your body? And does that provide more clarity on maybe less pressure and perhaps more clarity on what is actually the next right step for you?
I have not heard that perspective, and I'm so glad that you shared that. It really does relieve so much pressure.
Mhm.
Mm.
And it opens up space for the true desire-led decision to come through, which we could go on a whole other rabbit hole with that. But when we choose more from desire, when we lead more from desire instead of fear, we create a more desirable world. We create more love in our families.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you for that. That's really settling into my body. Yeah, I love that. How can people get in touch with you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can find me there, Emily Nahazel. I'm sure you will link it in the places.
I will.
And you can find me on my website as well. We're under construction. So right now there's probably just the current offering up. But maybe if you're listening to this in the future, we'll have our completely rebirthed website. And finally, you can find me at my podcast, Birthing the New with Emily Nahazel. We will definitely have Cindy on there soon. Can't wait to have another juicy conversation and not flip the script totally, because my podcast is also like this, very conversational. We're co-creating, but would be such a joy to host you there.
Yes, I'm so excited. And we're going to put all of those links in the show notes so people can easily access you, because I am sure people can feel it, but you are such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and have so much to share. And we were just scratching the surface. So I hope people reach out to you. Thank you so much for this, Emily.
Thank you again for the space, and thank you everyone for listening in.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Rewire for Birth. We hope you found our discussion inspiring and empowering. If you enjoyed the episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and spread the message of holistic, empowered birth experiences. Feel free to mention what you loved about today's episode and how it helped you feel more prepared and confident about your birthing journey. Your feedback not only encourages us, but it helps other moms-to-be find our podcast and join this incredible community. Together, we can make a positive change in the world of birth. Until next time, stay empowered and keep rewiring for birth.